Alright, we're in this volume 3. Right here. Oh, okay. And we are in part 4, story 3, Dangerous Plunder. That's what it says. Okay. And it says, years went by. Samuel grew to be a man into manhood and became known throughout all Israel as a prophet of God. How proud his mother must have been of him, and how glad she had lent him to the Lord when he was a little boy. So far, the message he had passed on to Eli from the Lord had not come true. Eli was still alive. His 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were behaving worse than ever. Yet Samuel felt it could not be long before something would happen to cause God's word to be fulfilled. One day messengers arrived at Shiloh from the camp of Israel to say they wanted to take away the ark. The army had been defeated in battle by the Philistines, and the leaders had decided that their only hope of victory was to have their sacred ark among them. Eli did not like to see the ark taken away from the Holy of Holies, but Hophni and Phinehas took notice of anything he would have said. Took no notice of anything that he had said. Together they carried the ark out of the tabernacle to the camp. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came to the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. And the people looked on the ark as some sort of magical charm that would bring them victory no matter what sort of lives they were living, or how much evil was in their hearts. Now, how mistaken they were. Next day, as the Israelites went to battle again, they were slaughtered. 30,000 men were killed, including Hophni and Phinehas. And the ark of God was taken. Meanwhile, up at Shiloh, Eli waited on the news. He was deeply worried about his 2 sons and the ark. As he sat on the seat near the tabernacle, a man hurried up the steep mountain trail. His clothes were torn, and there was earth on his head, a sign of mourning in those days. As he entered Shiloh and told his story, the people wailed aloud in sorrow. What meaneth the noise of that tumult? Called Eli, now 98 years old and blind. What has gone wrong? Then the messenger came and told Eli all that had happened. Israel fled before the Philistines, he said, and there had been a great slaughter among the people, and your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were dead, and the ark of God was taken. As the man mentioned the ark of God, Eli fainted and fell back off his seat, hit his head heavily on the ground, and broke his neck. He actually was big. That's what it says in the book, I think. At that moment, At that very moment, the wife of Phinehas died also, as she gave birth to a little boy. In her last breath, she called the baby Ichabod, and she said, "The glory is departed from Israel, and the ark of God is taken." Meanwhile, the Philistines carried the ark in triumph to the city of Ashdod, and put it in the temple of their god Dagon. Of all the plunder they had taken from the Israelites that day, this was far the most valuable. Not only was it overlaid with gold, it was, they thought, the secret to Israel's strength. But they soon found out it was the most dangerous piece of, I hate to say this word, booty or treasure. They thought their victory proved that their famous idol was greater than the God of Israel. By next morning, Dagon was found lying face down on the earth before the ark, and an angel must have pushed it over in the night. The Philistines set Dagon up on his place again, but the next morning he was down on the floor once more, this time in broken, this time all in pieces. His head and his hands had been snapped off and fell and left at the doorway, fairly frightened. So the head was snapped off, the hands were snapped off, and they were at the door. Uh, Everything else is broken. And there's the illustration. Okay. Fairly fright, Fairly frightening the priests out of their wits, they arrived to open the temple in the morning. What could have happened to their God? They wondered. Who could have smashed him into bits like this? What's this? I know the text is an old book. They were still wondering when lots of people in town suddenly became ill. So many died of a strange disease that the leading men of Ashdod got together and decided that they would get rid of the ark of God at once. They felt sure that it was the cause of their trouble. So they sent the ark to the city of Gath. No sooner as the ark had been brought to Gath, however, the same disease broke out there. More and more people became sick and died. So the people of Gath decided to send it to Ekron. And the same thing happened there. After 7 months of this, the Philistines had enough. Everywhere the people were saying to the leaders, "Send the ark of God of Israel. Send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it go again to his own place, that it slay us not." Oh, King James sometimes. Okay, after at last the 5 lords of the Philistines agreed to act. They called for the priest of Dagon and asked what they should do. These men advised that the ark be put on a new cart drawn by 2 cows and set on the road to the city of Beth Shemesh in the land of Israel. Beth Shemesh. Shemesh. If the cows should leave their calves behind, If the cows should leave their calves behind, they said, and follow the road all the way to Beth-shemesh, then it would be clear that the Philistines had done the right thing and that all their trouble had come upon them because they had kept the ark. A lot of people watched the cart as it set off, and no one was worried to see it go. You can imagine their thoughts as they saw two cows without a driver go straight along the highway, lowing as they went and turning not aside to the right hand or to the left. More interesting than anybody else were the five lords of the Philistines. They followed right behind the cart, eager to see what happened to it, and they could hardly believe their eyes as they saw those two cows pull the cart uphill clear to the land of Israel. How wonderful the power of God of heaven, they must have thought. And then it's got a 2-page of the cow, of the thing. So they followed it. Here's the illustration. They followed it all the way up to Israel, to Beth-shemesh. And that was story 3. Part 4, story 3. So we're going to break, and then we're going to go to the next story.